over a few hundred kilometers and nobody could find any reasons. But uh, I was sitting in the aircraft, it just exploded around me. Okay, sir. Anyway, you must have seen in Top Gun and movies like that. Then I ejected from the MiG-23, had a miraculous escape, and survived with several spinal fractures and knee fractured and half burnt and all.
Where did you land? On ground or water?
Landed on the ground, sir, close to the line of control on the Indian side, but very, very severely injured. And then, of course, I was in the hospital for about 6 months and recovered. Got back to flying. But what happens is in a fighter flying, if you, within a short span, if you have to eject again, your spine may not take it. So to give me a peace posting, I was posted to the office of the President of India, and I was posted as an ADC to President R. Venkatraman. Then I continued as what is called the Comptroller President's House. So I was a senior aide and comptroller with two presidents, President R. Venkatraman and President Shankardayal Sharma. I was one of the longest serving officers in the President's office. And I think in an act of madness, I resigned from the Rashtrapati Bhavan after being permanently absorbed and came and joined the Congress party. Okay. In 94. In 94, then I got into serious grassroots politics. In 94, I contested as an MLA. I lost. And I can tell you what it is to be in an opposition party and when you lose. And politics at the grassroots level is fairly brutal. I mean, police cases, harassment, being framed in wrong things, all that. Anyway, we endured it, and 99 I won as an MLA. Then I won in 2004, 2009, 2014, 2018, 5 times as an MLA, and 2019 as an MP. In between, I was also a cabinet minister in combined Andhra Pradesh. Then I was the PCC president for Telangana state for 6.5 years. And I've been a great admirer of Dr. Shashi Tharoor. He's probably not just in the Congress party, cutting across the spectrum of political parties in India today, one of the most charismatic and articulate, great writer. And I think it's a great pleasure and a privilege to be with you, sir.
Thank you, Uttam. I really enjoyed our various interactions over the years when I had meetings of AIPC in Hyderabad. It was a rare privilege that the PCC president would come, attend, speak, and give us and show us his full support. And I'm very pleased that the long-term consequence of that is that his wife is now an AIPC secretary in Telangana.
My wife, she's an architect and she's also an MLA.
So she is the principal attendee here, and he is only the trailing spouse. But let me just say, Uttam, did you find in all these things you were doing that your professional background and training, the discipline of the NDA, the 3 years of education there, all of that, did the professionalism and in your earlier career impact your work as a politician at all, for good or for bad? Did some things work? Were there some things that didn't match?
I think, so we come from one of the most disciplined organizations to one of the less disciplined organizations, the Congress Party. I mean, I wouldn't say anything. But I think what stood me in good stead was, of course, see, we went through fairly tough postings in the Air Force on the China border, on the Pakistan border. And I think once I decided that, okay, I'm here to stay, so we'd work very hard. And in politics, I'm just not saying in Congress Party only, in politics, somehow in India today, merit alone is not a consideration, which we all see in real politics, in elections, and in our various interactions. So we have to endure all that and just keep working hard and hope that God is on our side.
Fair point. I mean, you've already heard 3 or 4 interesting warnings for all of you professionals who are interested in coming into politics. And the other day, a lot of people raised their hands. You already heard that discipline doesn't go very far, merit doesn't go very far, that it's very hard work and that you have to slog and be prepared. and there's a lot of unjust cases and other kinds of harassment levied at you. So if you still want to, still want to raise your hands when people ask you, there you are. They still want to fight in politics. Please do. I do want to say though that Uttam is somebody who's really been through some tough times, and there's a saying that what doesn't kill you will only make you stronger. And he's come out of his various experiences as a very, very strong person. And in many ways, that's been the experience of some of us who've come into politics, not quite prepared for the Agni Parikshas to follow. And it has to toughen us. Either it toughens you or you essentially get out of the business, because there is no real way of being able to survive in this profession without that. Uttam, I just want to say, as a PCC president, did you find very many professionals interested in joining politics, and did you find them useful? Were you able to attract professionals more to your PCC and to the work of the party, or less?
Very less, very less. See, somehow real professionals, they all want to be armchair critics. They want to, criticize everything. They want to, I don't know how rest of you feel, but I think politician is a bad word in India today. Everybody wants to come to a politician for some favor or the other, but in society as such, the image of a politician has come down. So good professionals tend to keep away, which is unfortunate. I used to tell when I used to contest as an MLA, so, when the Indian Medical Association of Doctors or the Bar Association Advocates used to call me, either for some work of theirs or, generally for some program or function. I should tell them, and I repeat it now. See, you people will you'll criticize us, you'll say politicians are corrupt, politicians are this, but you don't take part. And for example, I as a local MLA do so much of work for you. Many of you don't even come to vote, leave alone participate in active politics. You don't even come on the voting day. But anyway, steadily over the years, it has increased. But what I can tell you, sir, is that we should aggressively, because I like the way you and your zonal, I think all your zonal coordinators, whether it is Zarita or Mr. Soz or I think Geeta Reddy and I think it was Milind Deora earlier. I think very qualified and very dynamic people, and your state presidents also, I see them working very hard. But I think, you should focus on numbers. How, I think when you discuss with your state presidents, how can we increase the numbers? It's not easy. To motivate people to come and, work, join Congress party is not easy. But I think basic AIPC focus on a 5th anniversary, I can say as your well-wisher, is to focus on your numbers. How to, make greater numbers, how to spread out in the districts, in smaller towns, etc. My own experience was, as a PCC president, many professionals are not straightforward wanting to come. And I must tell you also the disadvantage we face. See, we are All India Professional Congress, a wing of the Indian National Congress. But I must say that somehow the BJP is projecting themselves as a more nationalistic and more patriotic party than we are. There is something that is missing in our narratives. This is ridiculous. We are the people who got freedom to this country. It is the Gandhi family which has sacrificed the most. But when you see the narrative of the BJP, whether it is in Lok Sabha, I see it in Parliament all the time and outside the Parliament. One is, I think AIPC one is enroll more members. I didn't have any, I tried hard, but I think we need to work hard on that. Second is, the AIPC must also build that the Congress is very nationalistic and patriotic. Yeah. I think that's a line we must persistently take, because probably the BJP is taking that line much more stronger than we are. For example, sir, recently I was watching whether it is the December some date for the celebrating the Indo-Pak victory or the Kargil war or anything else. I found the BJP celebrating these occasions, and our celebrations were less muted, or I would say less publicized. So as professional Congress, that's one thought for you, sir, to keep in mind that we need to improve our
How
image.
many of our chapters actually marked Kargil Vijay Divas? Did any of you have an event? Yes? Okay, there are a few hands, so at least we did something. But clearly not everyone, and that's something that we should be conscious of. I can take one or two questions maximum if anyone has.
No, I think
questions
we
for
should
Uttam.
all hear Dr. Shashi Tharoor say, you must tell us your background, your professional background.
Okay, I've got one hand up for you already, Uttam. Very briefly, I mean, I actually had not only a sort of a conventional school and college education, but as I mentioned yesterday in some other context, I was from the kind of background where parents said that if you're good at taking exams and you're doing well, go off and do a real job. Politics is for those people who fail the exams. That was the usual attitude, and that was essentially what I. So even though I did run for the presidency of my college union at St. Stephen's College, that was a non-political position. We didn't have any NSUI and ABVP and SFI and so on. It was an election on college issues fought amongst college students. But subsequently, I found that in all my working life at the United Nations, before that as a graduate student in America, that somehow people wanted me to take responsibility and to lead. So, for example, I was elected a student representative at the American school. I was at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy and placed on the admissions committee, which was very unusual for a foreign student. Similarly, when my organization, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, held the first election amongst all the staff worldwide for their staff representative, I got the highest votes and I became the leader of the staff of the UN. So there was always something that people wanted me to do or saw in me that kept me thinking about being a representative voice, speaking for people, trying to understand and articulate their problems. But I continued having a full-time profession. I worked at the UN for just 1 month shy of 29 years. But then, as you all know, I was India's candidate to succeed Kofi Annan as Secretary General. I lost. I had 2 votes less than Mr. Ban Ki-moon, but one of them was a veto of a permanent member, the United States. So that was that. And I came back to India, and after about a year and a bit of dabbling in the private sector, particularly looking at investments in my home state, I was very pleasantly surprised to be invited to contest in the elections of 2009. And I say pleasantly surprised. I have no political pedigree. Nobody in my family is in politics. I have, or was in politics at that time, certainly not in any position of consequence. I have 2 relatives who were in their respective panchayats, but otherwise literally nothing. And when I was asked, I took on the challenge readily, largely because I didn't know what the heck I was getting into. I had never even seen an election up close because I left India at the age of 19 at a time when voting was only permitted from the age of 21. So I had never even voted. I had never seen any of this process. And you can imagine that the greatest shock of my life was not merely walking into a minefield in the Yugoslav Civil War or being sniped at in Sarajevo in Bosnia, all of which were part of my experiences. The greatest shock was actually campaigning in my first election. And that too with people organizing the program in the hope of driving me out of politics. So, you know, they would put a totally unrealistic program, sort of where I would start at 6 a.m. and officially end only at 11. But in practice, by 7 p.m., I would have reached what they claimed I could reach at 12. And so it was literally, there were some days when I used to be awake 23 hours a day campaigning. And when you had to switch off the mic at 10 o'clock, doesn't matter. They said, speak without a mic. And I was continuing going around. So people standing by candlelight, listening to my speeches. Somehow or the other, I survived and won. But the truth is that unlike Uttam, I would say that I do think that some of my professional qualities may have actually helped in my work, because I was able to understand fairly quickly some of the key issues I had no prior experience of. And I tried to solve them in a professional way. We had a highway that had been logjam for 40 years. No MP, including 2 former chief ministers who had been MP for my constituency, had been able to solve it. But by diligent working, by persistently harassing our highway ministers of the day, who happened to be, of course, UPA, because UPA came to power in my first term, I was able to get that particular highway approved, included in the budget, and I made sure that the first checks to buy the land changed hands just before the 2014 election. I knew that if that didn't happen, that once the highway started getting built, the new government would claim all the credit. So I want to make sure that the voters understood who had got them this project. And indeed, that was a huge transformative thing, because it was a highway that was going to cut through three of the seven MLA constituencies in my seat, and people knew it was going to transform their lives. That sort of thing. There are half a dozen examples I won't bore you with. I found, for example, that I had a number of constituents demanding stops of trains that weren't stopping in their constituencies. And having gone to a place like St. Stephen's College, I found that the chairman of the railway board was a senior of mine at college. So I could, call him in a way that perhaps another MP couldn't. And I got a stop that people have been agitating for 27 years. So all of those professional sort of connections or whatever did help in advancing some of the development goals, some of the implementation that politicians need to get done in order to show their constituents that politics can usefully change their lives. And that would be my answer, my short answer. You can have a 1-hour version later, if you want, of Uttam's question. We'll really have to cut the short. There was a lady there with a question. Go ahead.
We can only take one question.
One question. I know. We've got the state presidents are waiting for their turn. Go ahead, ma'am. Huh?
So,
There's no better person to advise you on that, Uttam. He's been on both sides. of the equation.
I think if you're passionate about it, get into it, continue the work you're doing, and get into the mainstream party. You belong to whichever municipality or town or village or wherever. Start working there, and I'm sure, of course, my earlier answer may have been a bit cynical, but I think somebody qualified and passionate and working hard, there'll always be a space. I think just continue to participate in all the political activity and whatever else you're doing now. I'm sure there'll be a future. There'll be a good future.
On that note, that somewhat optimistic note, Mr. Panikar, we really are in trouble with our time. Yeah. Okay, sir. I think we've taken note of that. And
I'll reply to you in 10 seconds. Congress party as a whole and me as an ex-serviceman, we think the Agnipath is a bad idea in every way. And what you're saying is a very relevant point. And I also think it is bad for the national security. Recently, just 2 days back, we had a discussion with some retired army chiefs. Some NGO organized a roundtable conference. The government is not able to answer why have they gone for it. There is no answer. I think it's bad for it. Hopefully, if we come to government in 2024, we should reverse it.
Uttam, I think it's very clear they've done it purely to save money on the
Yes.
pensions.
There is no other reasons.
Okay, I'm really sorry. I've got 2 warnings from my team that the next panel, which is all the states presidents, is massively late and some of the presidents are fights to clutch. So let me on your behalf thank Uttam Kumar Reddy for a very enlightening session. Thank you very much, Uttam. And Zarita, please come up on stage and all the president's chairs will follow. Come.
And I wish to thank Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Alim, and all the AIPC guys for inviting us and for your wonderful hospitality. Thank you very much and all the best to you.
Somebody, I'm coming on that back.
can I call all state presidents, please come on stage? while the state presidents are coming and we're arranging their seats, I would like to invite my good friend, the president of AIPC Haryana, Vijay Dhillon, to share something special with you.